Welcome to Inspirations, a podcast where we discuss everything relevant to the Christian life. Now here is your host, Jay Spurlock.
When it comes to faith, I think there are two types. And let me ask you, maybe off the top, what side you follow? Do you believe, is more the way you see life and faith, is it I will believe it when I see it? Or is it more I will see it when I believe it? I ask you that because it was about half a year ago or so, my good friends at Armbell Music dropped a track in a new album named Glory to Glory. And in that song, those lyrics became my favorite part of that song, because I know that I'm not the only one struggles with the unknown or not having the evidence to back up maybe the questions people ask me of my faith. And early on in my faith, really stumble and try to answer everyone's question. But a lot of times, I finally came to peace when I realized that faith doesn't require answers, doesn't require certitude, doesn't require an answer to every question. And with that became peace. And I really think this song took a special place in my heart, because, and still to this day it does, because I really believe that's when my faith, I really became deeper into faith, when this lyric came about. When I heard it for the first time, it just clicked. Because prior to my journey into the deep, into the unknown, into this faith walk, I had always had the answers. I always was able to control and know that, more than likely could control my fear, ways of maybe making sure that I wasn't rejected in a way, or I wasn't hurt, or maybe I didn't put myself in a place of risk because I knew the sting of rejection. But going back to this, I really believe this is where a lot of people can say that they can grow deeper in their faith, when honestly, are you more the person that you have to see it to believe it? And if you are, that's perfectly fine, and it's okay, because we all go through seasons of doubt. We all go through seasons of unknowing. We all go through seasons of just controlling everything in our life, so we do know that some things will be the same tomorrow. And when you really begin to trust God, I can say this, that you become more of the second part of that, the second way of truly knowing that if I believe this, then I will start seeing it. And that's the thing. That's where faith starts, is believing. And not having to have all the answers, and knowing that we will never have all the answers. All we can do is know as much as we can, know that we don't know it all, and rest in the peace that we don't have to know it all. We know that Jesus is a Savior, and that we have everlasting life in Him and salvation. But do we have to have all the answers? I don't think so. Maybe you're at a point where you think you do, and that's fine. And I encourage you to maybe look at this and ask yourself, how can I become more of a believer than a seer? Because I know this, when you're in a season that you really feel close to God, and you start seeing Him working, it's because you're looking. It's because your eyes are open. It's not because He hasn't been working, or He hasn't been doing things around you, because He has. It's just your awareness that has changed. And I really believe that this little change maybe in your mindset of identifying maybe you are stuck because you're trying to see everything. You're trying to see it before you believe it. And my friends, that's not faith. Faith is being okay with not knowing everything, not controlling everything, knowing God's in control, knowing God is good. Knowing and trusting that His timing is good and that He works all things for His good in us. So I want to read some quotes of faith, maybe just some quotes I found. Faith, it seems to me, is not the holding of certain dogmas or formulas. I do this, God does this. Instead, it is simply openness and readiness of heart to believe any truth God is willing to reveal to us, His children. That's Margaret DeLand. And this one really, I found, really spoke to me. It says, the interior life is not a question of seeing extraordinary things, but rather seeing the ordinary things with the eyes of God. I've challenged people that I've ministered to that are having trouble maybe loving others, and I say, take your worst enemy, and the only label that you can put on them is that they're a child of God, and start putting that label on everybody you encounter, and see how your eyes become more like His, and instead of seeing the faults, you start seeing the goodness in all people. Yes, we're all broken. Yes, we all stumble. We all let people down. We let ourselves down. But the difference is that we are children of God. And if you're a child of God, so is that person that maybe you don't feel like they are. And maybe they're not aware of it yet. But that does not give you an excuse to treat them any less than a child of God. Richard Rohr states, faith is the wisdom of the in-between, meaning it's the more that we begin to take notice of God working in our lives and not always having the answers, but trusting in Him, we start gaining this wisdom that can only be gained really in experience of knowing that He is good, and that faith is the wisdom of the in-between of Good Friday and Easter Sunday. We forget, I always say we're living in Saturday. We're living in, Jesus has been crucified on Friday. Saturday is everybody's mourning. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of fear. And then Easter Sunday comes and the prophecy is fulfilled. And that changes everything. So faith is really not having to have all the answers and not having to have an answer to everyone's question that asks you, why are you so faithful? Why do you believe in this when there's no evidence of this? Maybe in regards to science or whatever they may try to say. And to me, if you want to try to argue with those people, I think it's a losing battle, because often in this world, in a fact-based world, it's going to make more sense and it's going to win. But the difference is faith in this world, not this life. If it all adds up and makes sense here on earth, I don't know if it's meant to be of this earth. If it's meant to, faith is knowing that through Jesus, it all becomes all right, to say. And then the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith, indeed, is control. And people that control others, control their life, are often and always anxious or depressed when things don't go the way they want. And I can fit in those really well. And it's almost like I describe a ping pong ball, like going back and forth or whatever, of this cycle of being an anxious person and then being a depressed person. And it all comes down to fear. And then, not having faith and trust in God is there already. And I'm trying to get out ahead of him so that I can maybe fear less or feel less fearful. But that's the opposite of faith, is controlling everything. Because if you're in control in your mind, then ultimately you're saying Jesus is not Lord and he's not in control. Then you have, like this description, faith is trusting without necessarily fully understanding. And that's Rich Wilkerson. Trusting without fully understanding. Like I said, if you understand it all, then there's really no need for faith. So if you feel like you have it all figured out, I have to question maybe your faith, because our God is much bigger than the box we can put him in or the descriptions we can label him with. And he transcends it all, and he says that each of us, all of his creation, reflects his light differently. That's how different he is. That's how unique he is. That's how unique you are. We're not meant to be the same as anybody else. We're unique. Then Elton Trueblood says, faith is not belief without proof, but trust without reservation. So true. It all comes down with faith is trust. And what he means is by this is trust without reservation, meaning I'm faithful and I trust him, but when it comes to something that I don't want to give him trust in, or we lose a loved one, or we lose our marriage or our job or whatever, I trust him in everything else but this. This just doesn't make sense. He's, like I said, he's either Lord or he's not Lord at all. Jesus is either Lord of your life or he is not Lord at all. There's no in between. There can't be two pilots. And then faith is remembering in the darkness what we have experienced in the light, by Richard Ward. Remembering when we are faced with darkness, we are able to trust the path and trust the light that God is shining. And we might not be able to see it, but knowing that this is part of it. This is part of my path. Some of it is in darkness. Some of it is going to require me to trust him. Not when I want to. Nothing is more powerful to me in my faith of building that is requiring and being completely dependent on God and trusting that he's going to show up. Trusting that he's going to show up. I spoke a couple times publicly, and sometimes I have this fear that just makes me completely blank out of what I'm going to say. And you want to talk about your anxiety going through the roof. It is like nothing ever experienced before. But I have to think. I always have words to say. God puts them there. Hopefully that's just him saying, okay, I love your effort. I love what you're going to say, but let me say it. Give you the words. And it's 10 times better than anything I could say, but him speaking through me. But just knowing that there's going to be times of darkness that it's okay. That's the difference in people that are really deep in their faith. When time is dark, when things happen, and they are able to keep their peace, and they're able to still glorify God. I know a lot of people have reached out to me before, and they're like, and when I was really in the middle of my divorce and my hurt, they were like, how do you even smile? How do you have a smile? How do you joke? How do you laugh? How do you believe in a God at all? Two people that you loved, trusted, betrayed you. How does that happen? And all I could say was, I can't explain it either, but this whole thing about me like letting Jesus lead, it's real, because I can't explain it. The only thing I can think of that's changed is Jesus in my heart. Not Jesus, but Jesus in my heart. There's a difference. Jesus never changes. He's always the same. It's just our awareness, or what we allow him, or our openness to his love and us accepting it. And finally, my good friend Jamie George says, what is salvation? Have I been saved, or what is salvation? And he says, in simple terms, somewhere along the way, you gave up on you and you put your faith in him with a capital H. And I know that point. I know that point when my life came crashing down. All the things that I have built my life on, achievements and awards and you name it, all of that was gone. And I had to realize that that is not the route that is able to live on and leave a legacy or go on and live a life of eternity, but else it is one that can be taken away from you at any time. So I'm asking you, do you have to see it to believe it, and then know that God will reveal that to you and you can see it then? Because you will. When you start looking for God, he will be visible. I can promise you that. It's just a matter of, can you trust him just a little bit and let him reveal to you his goodness and how he is organizing all this chaos. I can't even organize my own life. My little life, he's organizing it all. And he makes all our messes a message if we allow it. Who does that? Who can do that but God only? God only can do that. And he wants to take your mess and make it your message, like he made my mess my message. He is able and he is willing. All he asks for is not your willfulness, but your willingness to allow him. Thanks. And now the segment, One Thing to Check Out. Since this episode was based on an Iron Belt Music song, Glory to Glory, I really want to share with you their music. And I wish and I hope that you check them out, either on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you get your music. Search Iron Belt Music. And I really encourage you, and I think that you will find their music is genuine, it's authentic, and it truly brings you closer to a relationship with the Lord. Now, for the quest to reflect. So this week, since we based a lot of our talk on faith, I thought the quest for reflect would be, when was the last time that you shared your faith with someone? And if you haven't, why not? Maybe I can challenge you if it's something that you are maybe fearful of, or you would like to know some segues in how can I share my faith with others. Feel free to reach out anytime. I would love to share some of the ways I do, and maybe give you some insight in that, because we are called not only to be in faith, but also to share our faith and give our reason for the faith that we have with others. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Inspirations. If you enjoyed today's episode, please head over to iTunes to rate, review, and leave a comment. And for more information, please visit inspirations.org.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.